Hello everybody, long time no see. I hope you enjoyed the Stonethorn release. If you haven't seen it, I did stream Stonethorn the release day where we did the new dungeons on Veteran, Almost Blind, and trying to get the hard modes done. That was a lot of fun. We played for about 5 hours, and I do love the new dungeons. I think they look great, and I think the mechanics you get are great. It was so much fun. So today we're here with the Necromancer Tank for Stonethorn. There hasn't been too many changes, but there has been some in terms of a new monster set that can be used with ALCHEMY in a great way, and general changes to ALCHEMY that you've probably read already somewhere on YouTube or on Reddit or wherever. However, I'm just going to show you how I play my Necro Tank this patch. It's quite a fun build to play, there's a lot of utility in it as well. So let's get into the character sheet. I did split the attributes up, so we've now got 45 into health, 9 into magicka, and 10 into stamina. That's just for bigger resource pools, and we're still on 43k health, almost 44k health, which is very nice for almost all the content. The base stats are, we've got about 18k max magicka, almost 44k max health, over 20k max stamina, and our magicka recovery is at 1500. Our resistances are at about 23,000. However, if you keep both of your buffs up that you got there, your bone armor and your spirit mender, and your potions, obviously, you will see that our magicka recovery goes way higher, up to 2k, and our resistances are at 28k, almost 29k. So you're covered with the resistances, you're totally covered with the magicka recovery. The Necromancer Tank utilizes a lot of skills that cost a lot of magicka, so that magicka recovery is really nice, especially added to that big pool of 18k max magicka. And yeah, it works really well for me. I hope you enjoy it as well when you try it out. We're running the Atronach as a Mundustone, increasing the magicka recovery for 310. If you're fine with a little bit less magicka recovery, you could also use the Lord one, I think it is, that gives you just more base health. But I feel fine with 43k health, almost 44. It's really up to you, whatever you think you need more. But this works well for me in all kinds of content. If you're a little bit less experienced, you might want to go for a little bit more health then. Or you could also just put a couple more points into health here, make that 50 and go down to 5 here or down to 4 here. You can really just play with it. Tanks are very much personal preference in how you play them. A lot of people prefer different things. And this is just my setup. This is how I like to run it and how it works fine for me. Okay, let's get right into the skills. First up, we got defensive stance. This comes from the one hand and shield skill line. This gives you a damage shield which absorbs up to 13k damage for 6 seconds and scales off your max health. The next harmful projectile cast at you will be reflected. Plus, when you have a shield equipped, the amount of damage you can block is increased by 10%, and the cost of blocking is reduced by 10%, which is why I prefer this shield to the bone shield more from Undaunted skill line. Because it does give a synergy, but it absorbs about the same amount of damage, and I'd rather have that block cost reduction that defensive stance gives me. So this is our shield. Next up is our heal, Hungry Scythe. This is an attack actually. It's not just a button that you push and heal. You need something to attack, and then the damage you do or the attack you do will heal you. This comes from the Bone Tyrant skill lines. First thing you unlock, just morph it to Hungry Scythe. It deals magic damage and it heals you for 6k health for the first enemy hit, and an additional 2k or almost 2200 for each additional enemy, up to 5 times. After the damage, you also get a heal over time for about 1k every 1 second for 5 seconds, also scales off your max health. So if there's just one boss, you will get a nice burst heal of almost 6k. No, almost 6,600. Plus, if you're in a group of adds and you're getting damage from all sides and you can hit up to 5 additional enemies, the heal will be much greater. So this really is our heal button, and it doesn't cost too much, only 3k magicka. You can just do this once or twice, and you will get quite a big heal out of it. Plus a heal over time afterwards. The next thing is also for damage reduction and healing. That's our Spirit Mender. That comes from the Living Death skill line. We morphed it to Spirit Guardian, and what it does is it conjures this ghost next to you for 16 seconds, and it will heal you or the lowest health eye around you. So it might not end up healing you, it might end up healing your group, but that's not a bad thing either. Every 2 seconds for 2k health, and while active, 10% of all the damage you take as a tank is transferred to the Spirit Mender instead, which is very nice because that's a 10% damage reduction we get. And will be the one taking all the damage, obviously, since we're tanking. Next up from the One Hand and Shield skill line is Heroic Slash. This is mainly just there for the minor maim that reduces the boss's damage by 15% for 12 seconds, plus you gain minor heroism, granting you more ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 12 seconds. So you just want this for the minor maim and for your ultimate gain. Ultimate gain is still a big thing for Necromancer tanks because the Colossus is so strong. You can use a Warhorn or the Revive ulti or the Barrier, whatever your group needs. And as a Nord and a Necro, you have insane ultimate gain anyway, so you can build it up even faster when you have this active at all times. And the next thing is Pierce Armor. That's our taunt. What this does is you stab the enemy and then it will be taunted to you and only attacking you for the next 15 seconds. Plus it also afflicts the enemy with Major Fracture, Major Breach, reducing their physical and spell resistance. So this is also very important to keep up. All of these things are really, except for your shield and your heal. You obviously only use them when you need to shield or heal yourself. But the Mender for the Magicka recovery and healing, and the Heroic Slash for the maim and the ultimate regeneration, and the Pierce Armor obviously for the taunt, the Major Fracture and the Major Breach should be up at all times. So if you're face tanking something, you always want to make sure that your Mender is up. You want to taunt it. That's the little red flame above his head. That means that it's only going to be attacking you, and up there you can see the Fracture, Breach and the taunt being the little shield running out. It lasts for 15 seconds, plus then your Heroic Slash lasts for 12 seconds, and these are the 4 buffs you always want to see above the head of the enemy and not let them run out. Don't let the taunt run out, and don't let the maim run out, and you'll be safe. And then you can just stand there and block the heavy attacks, keep your Mender up, and shield whenever you need, or heal whenever you need. The ultimate on the front bar is going to be the Colossus. This, however, completely depends on your group. If you are running with 3 other Necros that can have a really good Colossus uptime, you can obviously switch this out to the Warhorn. So the Colossus is from the Gravelord skill line, the Warhorn would be from the Assault skill line. What the Warhorn would do is it would increase your group's max magicka and stamina by 10% for 30 seconds, but more importantly it would give them major force, increasing all their critical damage by 15% for the next 10 seconds. So the Warhorn would be really strong. Or if the other tank and the 2 healers already run Warhorns and have good uptime on it, you can run the Colossus from the Gravelord skill line. And this will hit the enemies 3 times, dealing frost damage, but why we really use it, or why you want at least 3 Necros in your raid group, if you want to have great uptime on the major vulnerability, is sad major vulnerability. To any enemy hit for 8 seconds, their damage taken is increased by 30%. And this is huge, obviously. The enemies cannot be affected again for 20 seconds, so you could do a Colossus by any Necro in the group every 20 seconds, so probably more like every 30. Either way, major vulnerability, Necro is still the only class that can put that on enemies, and increasing their damage taken, the boss's damage taken by 30% is a huge deal. So if you run with Necros in your group, you should definitely have that on. And if you don't, you can be the Necro tank who puts it on them bosses or enemies. Okay, switching to our back bar, we're gonna play a Frost Staff on the back bar. First thing is Blockade of Frost. This is from the Distraction Staff skill line, obviously. Elemental Blockade it's called. You slam your staff down and deal magic damage. But the reason we're really using this is because, first of all, it can reduce the enemy's movement speed and help them get immobilized if they're chilled. But more importantly, because of the glyph we run on the staff, which would be the Crusher glyph, which reduces the enemy's physical and spell resistance even further. It's pretty simple. It lasts for about 12 seconds. Just put this down on the boss, and it will tick every second, and every second it ticks, the glyph can proc and reduce the enemy's resistance. So you always want to have this under the boss to have his resistances reduced and make it easier for your DPS to kill them. Also, heavy attacks with a Frost Staff taunt, obviously. I don't really use this because I think the heavy attacks are very slow, but here it says fully charged Frost Staff heavy attacks taunt the enemy for 15 seconds, so it's pretty much like the Pierce armor on the front bar. You just heavy attack something, and it will get these red flames over you and also be taunted for 15 seconds. Plus, you can gain a damage shield from this, so the Frost Staff is nice for more of a defensive setup. It also works very nice with another skill that I'll show you, because we have double ice damage on the back bar, which will pretty much guarantee that enemies will be immobilized and chilled. Hence why I do not run a actual CC ability on this setup. If you were to swap this out for lightning stuff, you wouldn't be able to CC enemies that easily. However, you would gain the chance to set them concussed and off balance, but most of the times the other tank and the two healers do that, or maybe you've got a Sork in your group that runs lightning stuff, so it's probably not necessary. The next thing we do is very important to the build. This is Overflowing Altar. This is a heal ground ability. You put the altar down, and every enemy within ally within 20 meters will heal if they attack enemies, and that's due to the minor lifesteal that this applies. First of all, they can take the Blood Feast synergy off your altar, healing themselves for 65% of their max health. Plus, also, every enemy in 28 meters will be afflicted with minor lifesteal, which means that if your allies attack them, they will actually heal by damaging them. So as long as your DPS are keeping up damage, they will heal themselves. Very nice ability, and very important to one of the sets we're playing here. Next up is Beckoning Armor. This comes from the Bone Tyrant skill line again, second thing you unlock. And what this is, basically, we are mostly running it for the Major Resolve, which increases our own physical and spell resistance by 5k for 20 seconds. That's what you've seen in the character sheet before. Our resistances right now are 21,700 and 21,300. And then we put this on, and they go up to 27 and 26. And if all your other buffs are running, they'll even go up to 28, almost 29k, which is good enough for pretty much all the content in the game, really. Another thing that Beckoning Armor does is, since we're not running Silver Leash and we're not a Dragon Knight, we don't have chains, but this will actually chain things in as long as they're taunted and range attacking you. So if I have my Beckoning Armor up and I taunt this guy with a Far Taunt or with a Heavy Ice Stack attack, and he attacks me from the range, he will get pulled in. And if he doesn't attack me from the range, he will run to me anyway if I'm taunted. So it's a very nice way to stack things up, and then just put your ice damage and your blockade down and have things immobilized, so your DPS can focus the stack down easily. Next thing we are running is Avid Boneyard. This is from the Gravelord skill line. Third thing you unlock, morph it to Avid Boneyard. It's very important because what this does is you can actually take your own synergy from it. The Grave Robber synergy, dealing 6k frost damage and healing you for the damage done. So as you can see, this is frost damage and our blockade is frost damage. So chances are, if we're putting our Boneyard down and our blockade down, there's double ice damage, so things inside of it will almost surely get chilled and immobilized. So it's very easy to keep things in place if you got both of these down. That's why we are not running the other skill that I used to run here before, the Agony Totem, which would fear things in place and also reduce the resistances. But it's not really necessary if you run an ice stuff and the Boneyard, and this setup is just working a lot better right now, mostly because of the changes to Alkash and the new monster set, and it's good enough for CCing things. You can pull them in with the Beckoning Armor if you have it up by taunting them, and then just put the blockade and the Boneyard down, and that's double ice damage that will almost certainly get them chilled and kept in place. It works very nicely in dungeons, in trials as well. So just give it a try. Let me know what you think about it. Last but not least, it might be a bit overkill since we've already got this taunt and we have an ice staff, but I don't really trust the ice staff attacks. They take very long. Oftentimes a fully charged ice staff attack takes too long to get everything taunted and pulled in. So I still prefer running in a rage here. This is also from the Undaunted skill line, and that's a far taunt. You've just seen me do that. Morph it to in a rage, it deals magic damage, plus it also taunts the enemy to you for 15 seconds. That's what you need as a tank. And ranged ally targeting the taunted enemy can even activate a synergy doing magic damage. So you're giving out another synergy, and you can taunt things from really far away. Like here. Just use in a rage, and then you can see the flame above his head again, and the shield and our buffs up there. He's taunted. Now, the ultimate on the back bar fully depends on what you need for your group. If you're running with a proc group or a trials group that is not very experienced, and chances are people are gonna die, I would definitely go for renewing animation. This is from the Living Death skill line. And this is just an AoE res. It can resurrect up to 3 allies in the target location. It's very big radius as well. It's like a 28 meters range ground cast. Plus, you restore 5,300 magic and stamina for each ally you attempt to resurrect, even if it doesn't work or they decline it for some reason. You still restore a lot of resources. So this would be my go-to for proc trial groups, or even dungeon groups that are trying to do veteran dungeons or hard modes for the first time, because it's very nice actually to have that res there. It's like a safety button. If you do not want that, because you're pretty sure no one's gonna die, I would definitely go for either the Warhorn or the Barrier. I haven't morphed this yet. I can morph it to Reviving Barrier, which is just a huge ass damage shield for everybody that lasts for 30 seconds. So either Warhorn or Barrier on the back bar. Then the ultimates are really your choice. It depends on what group you're running with and what kind of content you're doing. Alright then, I'll quickly go into skills that are useful if you're not running this setup, but that are really good to have on a Necro Tank, and that would be definitely Deaden Pain. If I wasn't running Blood Altar, I would put this here on the back bar like I had it in the previous setup. And this is just an ultimate regain. Plus, while slotted, your damage taken is reduced by 3%. So you can suck ultimate from corpses, which helps you get even more ultimate and pump out more Warhorns or Colossuses or Res Ultis or whatever you need. And also, while slotted, your damage taken is reduced. Another thing you could put on there is Expungent Modify, because while slotted, the cost of all your abilities are reduced by 3%. So this also can remove negative effects from you, but I was mostly just running it because the Blockade and the Boneyard and everything are very expensive skills, and having their cost reduced by 3% is also a very nice thing to do. Mortal Coil is something that some people like to run. You can pretty much heal from a corpse on the ground, sort of suck their life out of them and heal. And while slotted, healing done is increased as well. Plus you restore a little bit of stamina over 12 seconds, but it's only 1,295 over 12 seconds, so it's not really a lot. There might be niche situations where this is helpful, that's why I got it leveled up, but I'm not really using that very much. Alright, another thing is Ghostly Embrace. This would be sort of a CC ability, but it doesn't really work very well in my opinion. I don't really like to use it. It does apply minor maim, but in an area of effect, but yeah, it might be useful for some dungeons. I don't really like to run it. This I used to run all the time. This is a great skill, Agony Totem. It fears enemies in place after 2 seconds of casting the totem, plus your allies can activate a synergy, dealing magic damage and applying minor vulnerability to everybody inside of the totem's area. Plus it can also be used to be put on your group and give your group minor protection for 11 seconds, reducing the damage taken. So this is definitely a skill I would want to have. I don't have it on this setup, unfortunately, because I didn't find the bar space to do it, but this is a very nice thing to run as well. I would probably put this on if I was not running the sets that I'm running on this build. Alright, what else do we have? Obviously, Shield Discipline is a great ultimate. You can pretty much block all attacks at no cost for 8 seconds and do a heavy attack during these 8 seconds to restore some stamina if you needed to. This is very nice for stuff like Veteran Hel Ra, where the warrior is doing his weird Street Fighter combo things at you, and you can just get some stamina back by casting this ultimate. Then we've got Crushing Shock. Obviously, this is a range interrupt. This would be very good to have. Elemental Drain would also be nice to have in case you're running without a healer. Immovable is something that you don't really need. It also gives you Major Resolve, and it's also granting you immunity to knockback and disabling effects, but it also reduces your movement speed by 90%, so you're pretty much locked in place. However, each piece of heavy armor worn increases the amount of damage you can block, so maybe for Veteran Sunspire, if you're doing that, just because it makes you really, really tanky. It keeps you in place, but it makes you absolutely tanky. It's nice to have, but I never really use it, to be honest. But there might be situations where you want to do this. Silver Leash definitely should have that, in case you're not running bone armor, or you don't want to rely on the taunt and the pulling in that bone armor can do, but in case you really need to stack things very fast, I would definitely go for Silver Leash. And then here I've got Spike Bone Shield. This is the other shield. It gives a synergy in case you need that. And Mystic Orb, which is just nice to have if you don't need to run anything else. You can just give your allies another synergy, and they will deal magic damage to the enemies if they take it. Vigor is something I've got leveled only in case I ever needed to run Powerful Assault, which is a set that buffs your group if you use an assault ability. So this would be the heal. It would heal me for over 8k health for over 4 seconds. So this is nice to have if you wanted to run Powerful Assault with it. Other than that, I think the heal from the Scythe should be enough for you. And then obviously Purge for stuff like VHOF, when you need to cleanse yourself and the group and remove negative effects from them. It's just a group cleanse pretty much. That's also something that's very nice to have. Alright. We are in Nord, obviously. Let's get right into the passives here. Nord is very nice because of the bonus. It's a little bit less than the Imperial would get, but I favor the resistances over that 1k health. I think Imperials get either 1,500 or 2,000 max health, and Nords get 1,000. Plus immunity to the shield status effect, which can be very nice as well. Then we also get 1,500 max stamina, plus while we take damage we gain 5 ultimates every 10 seconds. So this is definitely great for tanks. And then Rugged increases our physical and spell resistance by 3,900. So you can see this is just my preferred race for tanking on a Necromancer, because getting the resistances up there is not so easy on a Necro. I have the feeling you do have the bone armor and all, but even with the bone armor on, or let's just say with nothing on, they're just at like 21k. So with all the buffs going, they go up to 28, but the cap is 33. So we're in a very good range up there. I don't really think you necessarily need much more than 29k-ish, but yeah, this comes in really handy, definitely. That's why I prefer the Nord still over an Imperial on a Necromancer. Other passives, I'll just go through them really quickly because I've explained them so many times already. This is great because when your Spirit Mender dies, the next one costs 50% less. Death Knell increases your critical strike chance. It's not really too important for tanks. Your physical and spell penetration are increased by 1,500 while a Grave Lord ability is active. That actually works very nicely because most of the time we will have the Boneyard down. So our physical and spell penetration are increased. And then increasing the damage done with damage over time effects. So these is more like, this is the DPS skill line obviously. But yeah, they're handy to have. The most important one being reusable parts in my opinion. Then Bone Tyrant, this is the tanking skill line, so you definitely want that. Whenever an enemy dies in combat within 28 meters of you, you restore 200 magic or stamina. This is really cool. Reduce the damage taken from damage over time abilities. Increases your healing received for each one slotted. Increases your max health by 1,200 250. This is awesome for tanks. Just free max health. Necro is the only class that really gets that. And then Living Death, while you have a negative effect on you, healing done is increased by 8%. This is very nice as a tank actually, because we will have a lot of negative effects on us most of the time. Then while you have a Living Death ability slotted, your critical strike chance with all healing abilities is increased by 20%. So this is very nice as well. When you use an ability on a corpse, you generate 10 ultimate. This is also awesome. And then while we have the Spirit Mender up, our Magicka and Stamina recovery is increased by 200. This is very important because we do have the Spirit Mender up all the time, and it boosts our Magicka recovery. Obviously you want all of the ones from the One Hand and Shield skill line and the Destruction Staff skill line because that's your main weapons. You do want the first 3 from the light armor because the other 2 are only if you would wear 5 pieces of light armor, but we don't. You also want Windwalker for stamina recovery and Athletics for movement speed from the medium armor one. And then you want all of the heavy armor ones because we are wearing 5 pieces of heavy armor, obviously. You would only need this one from the Fighters Guild. Banish the Wicked can be nice, but what are the chances that you as the tank will kill things? So Intimidating Presence is only important because it reduces the cost of our Silver Leash by 15%. Undaunted, you definitely want those because we are wearing 5 pieces heavy, 1 light, 1 medium. So we get an extra couple thousand health, 600 stamina and 500 magicka. Plus our max health stamina magicka is increased by 6%. Assault, you don't really need any of that. Support, if you are running Barrier or Efficient Purge, I would advise you to get Magicka 8, because that will increase your Magicka recovery even further, even though we don't really need it, because we already are at like 2k Magicka recovery, which is insane anyway. And then Alchemy, very important, so your potions last 30% longer, and you can actually have 100% uptime on them. So, for potions and food, I didn't even mention that before. Obviously, Bewitched Sugar Skulls is the best tank food at the moment in the game. You get max health, max stamina, and max magicka, plus your health recovery is increased by 462. This is very nice. If you can't afford these, just go with the normal tri-stat food, like either the crown food that you get or any purple food that gives you health, magicka, and stamina. And for potions, we are obviously using the Essence of Health, which will grant you health, magicka, and stamina immediately, so the tri-stat potions, and also grants you Major Fortitude, Intellect, and Endurance, increasing the recovery of all 3 stats as well. Alright, so let's get into the gear. It is no surprise, and it is pretty much the setup that people have been running for ages, but with a nice twist to it due to the monster set. It's ALCHEMY on the front bar, a shield and a one-hand weapon. It doesn't matter what one-hand weapon, and an ice staff or lightning staff if you prefer, though I do like ice staffs for Necromancer tanks on the back bar. And then the jewelry. The jewelry you can have either in Triune or Healthy or Swift, whatever you prefer. I personally like it in Healthy because I do want to give my Necro tank a bit of a health buff, since a lot of the skills actually depend on your max health, all with Magicka recovery glyphs. And then the front bar weapon you can have either in Decisive for even more ultimate gain, or you can have it in Defending for a bit of a damage shield on your front bar, with a Hardening enchantment, which will also grant you a damage shield, or you can have it in Charged with a Shock enchantment for a bit more off balance, even though this build does not do any off balance because we don't have any lightning damage. But that would be a way that you could incorporate that a little bit if you had that in Charged with a Shock enchant. Or you could also run it in Sharpened to have your CP distribution a little bit different and not rely on your CP so much for ALCHEMY to do its max value thingy. The shield I like to have in either Reinforced for a bit more resistances, or in Sturdy for a bit more block cost, or in Well Fitted for a bit more movability to roll dodge easier and stuff like that. So go for either. of those 3 traits that you choose, and also go for either of the traits that I just mentioned for the front bow weapon. That's really up to you. It's personal preference. The staff, however, should be infused with a Crusher enchantment, so you do reduce the target's physical and spell resistance by 2000 for 5 seconds. However, the blockade procs every 1 second for 12 seconds, so this will be renewed every time it runs out, and the blockade takes away anyway. Infused, so that the amount of resistance reduction is increased up there. And then what ALCHEMY actually does is weapon crit, minor slayer, weapon damage. It's actually a stam DPS set, or it was meant to be one, though it works very nice in tanks. People have been using it forever. While you activate a synergy, you send a shockwave out from your position that deals physical damage and an additional physical damage over 10 seconds. But more importantly, it reduces the physical and spell resistance of any enemy hit by the amount of the initial hits damage done for the duration. Now, the initial hit is only 3,800-ish, which is why we want to proc ALCHEMY 2 times in this set. So the first time for the initial hit, and then the second time for a bigger hit. So your ALCHEMY basically boosts your ALCHEMY. It's a bit hard to understand. There's great videos on it by a YouTuber called the Tank Club. I'm pretty sure Nefas has one on it as well. He would have, because he tanks a lot and he knows a lot about that stuff. So if you want to really get into the details of this, go watch the Tank Club's video on ALCHEMY that they recently released. But yeah, you pretty much have to proc it twice now, and that's what our setup is going towards, because we are running the new Lady Thorns monster set, which will give us max health, which is very nice for tank, plus casting an ability that costs health spawns a blood ball for 10 seconds. And you or an ally near the blood ball can activate the synergy Sanguine Burst, dealing disease damage and applying major maim for 5 seconds, decreasing everybody's damage done for 30 seconds. So for 30% every 30 seconds. So point being, you can actually activate your own synergy with this, and you can actually activate your own synergy with your Avid Boneyard. And that's your 2 hits that you need for your ALCHEMY to really get the best out of it. So even if you were in a 4-man group, you can easily run this in dungeons, and you don't get a lot of synergies from your group. You could still activate your own Avid Boneyard and your own Lady Thorns synergy, and therefore have your ALCHEMY going off of that. And then the last thing we run here is Eben, obviously, for max health, max healing taken, and max health for you and 11 other group members, so everybody gets about 1k more health if they're standing within 28 meters of you. You could, if you were main tanking, you could definitely also run Yolnakrins here, which gives you max health, minor Aegis, max stamina, and when you taunt an enemy, you give you and yourself and 11 other group members minor courage, increasing the weapon and spell damage. So this is more of a damage buff. Eben is more of a health buff for your group. That really only depends on what your group wants. If you're in a 4-man group and they need a bit more health because you're in a hard bet dungeon, you can go with Eben if their damage is fine anyway. If they need a bit of a damage burst but they're pretty robust and they don't die a lot, you can go with Yolnakrins. About the traits on the armor, we're running 5 pieces of heavy on the body. The big piece is infused with tri-stack glyphs, so chest, legs and head infused with tri-stack glyphs, and all the small pieces in sturdy for reduced block costs, because that's important as a tank. The monster set, we're running 1 light and 1 medium, so we've got 5 heavy, 1 light, 1 medium. The small piece, the shoulders, in sturdy as well with health enchant, and the big piece again infused with a tri-stat enchant. And that's how we get these really nice stats with very high stamina, health, and magicka pool, great magicka recovery, and good resistances. Now I'll quickly show you how this works. We can ALCHEMY this dude here by putting our Boneyard down, taking the synergy, and there you can see the ALCHEMY debuff about him. And then by casting this one, we can use a Sanguine Burst and give it another ALCHEMY synergy. The Lady Thorn set will proc off of your Overflowing Altar. So it's this thing here, the Overflowing Altar, that will proc that Lady Thorn ball, which you then can synergize. I can't right now because you can only do it every 30 seconds. But yeah, that's pretty much how it works. You can synergize your Boneyard anyway, and then you put the Blood Altar down on it, and you can synergize this again. So, Boneyard, one synergy for Alkosh, Blood Altar, next synergy for Alkosh. Oh, it's, I guess it was still over there. Blood Altar, next synergy for Alkosh. So there you go. That's your setups. It's a great way for 4-man content to keep up Alkosh if you don't get a lot of synergies. It's also great in trials if synergies don't really reach you, or you just want to give it an extra buff so you can secure that you can proc your Alkosh a lot. Now, optional sets, if you don't need Alkosh because the other tank is running it. Lady Thorns obviously doesn't make much sense. It would still give the major maim, but like only for 5 seconds every 30 seconds, I think. So that wouldn't really be a great thing to wear then. If you're not running Alkosh, don't use Lady Thorn. Use maybe Earthgore if you need self-heal, or use Stonekeeper if you need a bit more of a bit more sustain, but you shouldn't really, I guess. Or use Symphony of Blades if none of the healers are running it, because that will help your group sustain their Magicka and Stamina. Or use the Engine Guardian. This will give you either Stamina, Health, or Magicka randomly, though. So you can't really... It's not going to give you the thing that you're missing. It's just randomly going to give you one of these 3 things back. Or use Thurbocoons if you want Minor Maim and Minor Defile. So it's really up to you, man. Or just use Bloodspawn, because it still does give you more ultimate back, so you can pump out more Colossuses. Or if you're in a stamina group, use Tremor Scale, because that will reduce the enemy's physical resistance further. So it just really depends on who you're running with and what you need, or what situation you're in. If you're on your own, like in Vas, and you need some safety blanket for your health in case it goes down, go with Earthgore. There's so many options here. There's not really anything to do. For the body sets, I would just stick to Yolnakrins and Eben in the same traits, because that's gonna be the thing you're gonna be wearing most of the time. If you do run with a tank who actually runs both, I've had that a couple of times. They were running Eben on the body and Yolnakrin on the weapons. That's why I got myself the Battalion Defender set. It's also a very nice set. If you're blocking, you heal yourself or a group member within 15 meters of you for over 2k health every 1 second. So you just stand there and block, and you're healing yourself and the group with it. That's pretty nice for group support. And for the main hand stuff, if you're not running Alkosh, just go with the Dragon set, I would say. That's probably my favorite set still for Necromancer, because it gives you even more ultimate. It adds Magicka recovery, max health, healing taken, health recovery, and it reduces the cost of all your ultimates by 15%. So if you don't need to run Alkosh, go with Battalion Defender or the Dragon set, just because you can do a lot more Warhorns and a lot more Colossuses and everything. So these are the sets to have. I would get Alkosh and the Dragon for your weapons, and then I would get Eben, Yolnakrin, Battalion Defender for your body, and you're safe for all kinds of situations, pretty much. You can also craft yourself Toruk's Pact for the weapons, just to increase that Crusher thing. It's also a nice option. But as I said before, it really depends only on what you're doing and who you're running with. Now for CP, just random overview: 72 into Ironclad, 15 into Spell Shield, 51 here for reduction of damage over time effects, 49 and 49 in Hardy and Elemental Defender, 19 quick recovery for healing received, 15 in heavy armor focus. You see I've got these 15 here and these 15 here, even though we're a Nord, just to make sure that the resistances are on par. 37 in Warlord to reduce the cost to break free, 21 in Sprinter because Necros are fucking slow. Bashing focus, reduce the cost of bashed for 10% is 16 points here. Then we've got 64 into our Magicka recovery Arcanist, and 56 into the resource restore by heavy attacking, 20 in tumbling for roll dodging, and 56 into shadow ward for blocking, 64 in blessed for healing done, 31 in elfborn for critical healing done. And now here's where it gets important for Alkush to really unfold its full potential. You need that if you want to run Alkush. 52 in master at arms, 59 in piercing for physical penetration, and 64 into mighty. These three values are important if you're running Alkush. If you're not running Alkush, you can do whatever you want here. However, I would advise you to get at least 120 points into the mage ritual tree for the last stand passive, where if you fall below 20% health, you gain major heroism and get a lot more ultimate back than you usually would. This one for tanks. Alright, that's about it. I hope I didn't miss anything. This is my build for the Necro Tank for Stonethorn. It's pretty much the usual setup, Eben, Alkush, but with a nice twist to it with the Lady Thorn set, since you can self-synergize that set and your Avid Boneyard. And then I've given you options as well if you're off-tanking. Let me know how you enjoy your Necro Tank, what you're doing with it, and have a good one. I'll see you soon.